Welcome to Rude Tunes Arcade. I'm your host RT, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Super Nintendo classic, in my opinion, a masterclass in run and gun style video games. A game that set a very high bar in the series, and I'm talking about none other than Contra III: The Alien Wars for the Super NES. Now the year was 1992, my senior year of high school, and I remember picking this game up from my local KB Toys and Hobby. And while I was expecting the game to be decent due to it being a Contra title and being published by Konami, up to that point, every Contra game in the series was credible and followed by the same style of gameplay.
I pinged some enemies. Stay alert.
But anyway, when I played this game, it totally surpassed my expectations. The premise of the game is pretty simple. The alien Red Falcon, who was thought to be dead, has resurfaced and is launching an all-out attack on the Earth. And in heroic fashion, two commandos, sometimes referred to as Jimbo and Sully, are tasked with fighting off the alien invasion. So let's start with the visuals and graphics in this game. Now, the animation is fluent and the sprite details on this game are amazing. There are a ton of explosives, rockets, missiles, aliens, and all types of machines moving along the screen at one time. Now you will get the occasional slowdown from time to time, but not enough to hinder your gameplay. The backgrounds in the stages are very detailed and show that the aliens have been doing some damage on the Earth, and we can see that in the initial stage showing a destroyed city as a backdrop. All throughout the game, in my opinion, this game definitely paints a very cinematic feel. Now moving on to another cool part was the overhead view in stage 2, which featured Mode 7. Now what's Mode 7? Well, if you were around back in the Super Nintendo days, Mode 7 was actually featured in a lot of games like Super Mario Kart, F-Zero, and Pilot Wings. And overall, Mode 7 was a major selling point for the Super Nintendo and allowed developers to create visually stunning games that pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible on 16-bit hardware. Now some people can actually say that's pretty gimmicky because basically all it did was give the system the ability to scale and rotate background elements. And also the background was manipulated to simulate effects like zooming in, flying over landscapes, and rotating objects. Long story short though, it achieves this by enabling the rotation, scaling, and transformation of the background on a per scan line basis, and resulted in an appearance of 3D-like graphics through the underlying system, which is strictly still 2D. Translation, it can be gimmicky. But I loved it, and I take no shame in saying that I used the Mode 7 argument with my buddy back in the day. Obviously the big argument was back then what was better, Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis. So I used Mode 7 in a lot of my arguments to try to get the edge. Now probably my favorite stage in Contra III: Alien Wars has to be Stage 3, and for a number of reasons. I think, in my opinion, that captured the essence of the game and truly felt like we were almost playing a movie, with a beautiful background of an industrial power plant, along with the details of chemical release emitting from the tower and forming a plume of dark smoke filling the sky. To me, that was very powerful and leads to imagination, intrigue, and dare I say it, maybe even a little bit of fear of what the aliens did to damage this city in this particular scene. And then there's the bosses of this stage, and I have to say they were very well thought out. For example, the Transforming Wall Walker. Yeah, try saying that 3 times fast. Now what makes this guy cool is that it has 3 forms. Now the first time I saw this thing rise from the dead and start trying to scale the wall and kill me after I just defeated it, or at least I thought I had, I ain't gonna lie, that gave me goosebumps. That was just like so cool. With the music going in the background and also with the anticipation of the scrolling of the screen going up to the top. That was just, I was on the edge of my seat playing that game at the time. And then the final boss at the end of that stage, the Robot Brothers, Kenny 1 and 2. I like the fact that it was 2 of them. They were twins, but they acted independently, had different types of attacks. And I don't know, these guys kind of reminded me of an old Go-Go 13 anime back in the day, The Professional. and it was two characters on there called Gold and Silver, and I don't know if these guys have reference to them, if the creators maybe had that in mind, but they kind of remind me of them in a way. But moving on, because I could be here all day talking about my appreciation on this game's graphics. As far as sound and audio, this game totally delivers in that area as well. In my opinion, this game has one of the best soundtracks for the Super NES library. I mean, the tracks fit perfectly. For example, Stage 4 theme is perfect fit for the motorcycle and heavy side-scrolling backgrounds, along with the battle in the sky against this guy. And again, as a gamer, our minds wander. This guy right here always reminded me of The Rocketeer, which is a movie that came out in 1991, in my opinion, highly overrated and kind of sucked. That's my opinion though, but that's what this guy reminded me of. Now, most tracks did fit well with the stages they appeared on, and also this game did a good job with the weapons as well. To me, each weapon had a distinct and unique sound. So let's go ahead real quick and sample a few of these killer OST tracks. Now, as far as gameplay, this game checked all the boxes, and then some in the run and gun style department. Now, you had the option to play 1 or 2 player mode in this game. Now, the game features 6 stages, and each one comes with its own set of mechanics. Some of these stages are classic side-scrolling action where players run, jump, and shoot enemies that primarily emphasize on fast-paced action, precision platforming, and defeating a crap ton of alien enemies. Now, one thing that makes this game kind of challenging is some of the enemies do respawn, and their respawn usually comes at a timed interval, not so much to where you're at on the stage at times. And then you have the Mode 7 overhead stages that offer a dynamic perspective, allowing players to navigate the stage and destroy designated targets. And you can pick anywhere you want to start on the stage, which I thought was a nice touch. Also, with the unique ability to rotate the screen, that gives players a novel way to interact with the environment and overcome obstacles. As far as your combat and power-ups, you're equipped with 2 machine guns which can be swapped at will, which I thought was very innovative at the time, and upgraded with various power drops by flying pods. And that was a throwback to the old Contra games. Now, your weapons include homing missiles, cluster torpedoes, flamethrowers, lasers, and the famous fan favorite, the spread shot. Now, losing a life causes players to lose their current weapon upgrade, so whenever you die, whatever weapon slot you're in, you're going to lose that weapon. However, you do get to keep your other weapon. So if you have a weapon that you really want to protect and you're in an area where you know you're going to die, it's probably a good strategy to just use that crappy weapon and save your powerful weapon for the boss or whatever utility you want to get out of it. Along the way, you can also pick up bombs, kind of a get out of jail free card, and you get temporary barrier shields. Think of it like the star in Mario, you get a limited amount of invincibility. Now, one thing that people who played the game might not know you have, it's called a spinning jump, which allows players to fire both guns in an aerial somersault. The problem with this is, though, that this comes with a risk. If you get killed while you're doing this spinning jump, not only do you lose your life, but you'll lose both of the weapons in your weapon slots. Now, with this system in place, I love that it gave you a variety to play the game the way you wanted to play. I mean, you could hit hard with the cluster torpedoes and then save those and then use other lesser attack weapons such as the homing missile, which actually does less damage when you hit enemies, but it has a much better range and covers a lot more area when you're firing. So you can mix and match your weapons, you can have 2 of the same weapon, etc, etc. And it gives the game another layer of depth of how you want to play. Now, as far as difficulty in the game, this game can be tough, especially when you play the game on a harder difficulty setting and when you play alone. And one thing to note, if you want to get the true ending, you have to play on the harder difficulty. If you play on normal, you'll beat the game, but you won't get the true ending. So So I'm not gonna lie, this game is probably gonna take you a few playthroughs to get it down, with the mechanics, memorizing where enemies are, and forming strategies against the bosses and the stage in general. Now I haven't played this game in probably about 10-15 years, and when I played through this time, I found my ass getting handed to me. Now I did eventually beat the game after a couple of tries, but yeah, I remember it just seemed to me as a kid I had this game down, and as an adult, this game can be challenging, so keep that in mind. Now one thing to note here also while we're talking about difficulty is the Japanese version is considerably easier due to the fact that the OG Contra code works and it gives you 30 lives. It also gives you a level select code, and lastly, you get unlimited continues in the Japanese mode. In the US mode, you have a limited amount of continues and there is no 30-man Contra code. In the Japanese version, you can get the true ending by playing the game and beating it on normal, as opposed with the US version, you have to play on the hard mode or higher. And I don't know if the difficulty was ramped up in the US version to discourage players from, renting the game and beating it in one weekend and taking it away from the sales. Who knows? But overall, Contra III: The Alien Wars was an amazing game for the Super NES. And it also spawned remakes on the original Game Boy and one on the Game Boy Advance. And I thought both ports were done extremely well. Now, I know the GBA port to some got a lot of backlash because of the downgrade in music and replacing the overhead view stages with a couple of stages from Contra Hardcores, but I still think it was a very fun game and a really good port of the original. So that's gonna do it for Contra 3: The Alien Wars. If you've never played this one, I highly recommend giving this one a try, and you can thank me later. Please rate, comment, and subscribe as it helps the channel grow, and that way you don't miss any more game reviews or gaming news on this channel. And with that, guys, please take care of yourself, protect your inner peace, God bless you, happy holidays, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.